Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. It's so lovely having you here. We have with us today Mark Roberge, founding CRO at HubSpot, senior lecturer at Harvard Business School, managing director and co-founder at Stage 2 Capital, and author of The Science of Scaling. And we also have with us Sahil Aggarwal, CEO and co-founder of One. Now I will hand it over to our lovely speakers for today's session.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. Martina, thank you for the introduction. My name is Sarah. I'm the marketing leader at a company called Vaughn, and I'm going to be the host and the moderator for today's webinar. I did want to have my screen sharing, so give me one moment while I get that started, and then I'll get into our housekeeping items. All right. You just rearrange my screen here slightly. All right. Okay, thank you so much, everybody, for joining me today. I am going to do an official introduction of our speakers in a few minutes, but before we get there, I wanted to just welcome you today to the fireside chat with Mark and Sahil, both of whom have a really long list of impressive credentials, which I'll cover shortly. But what I want you to know is right now is that both of these speakers have significant experience and interesting points of view on how companies can grow and scale their business in today's reality, as we are all experimenting with how on earth are we supposed to operate in the AI era. And one of the things that we're going to discuss is why hiring more AEs to meet your revenue goals now has a different equation than you may have considered in the past. All right, before I move on to introducing our speakers, there are a few housekeeping items that I want to cover. So first of all, I know this is being recorded and we will share a recording of today's webinar after everything gets all wrapped up. Next, I want to encourage the audience here today to use the chat or the Q&A tab to ask questions throughout the webinar today. Both Mark and Sahil they're so smart, they're so great at answering questions and having interesting perspectives you might not have heard about before. So I do encourage you to use that. If we don't have time to get to all of the questions, I always write a blog post at the end of webinars and answer all the questions that get asked live. So you can know that your question will be answered in a blog post if it's not answered live today. The next thing that I would like to do is encourage everybody here to go grab your LinkedIn profile URLs and put them in the chat here today. One of the things that can be tough is making time to network with each other. And the next best thing, in my opinion, is making sure that our LinkedIn network includes people that we would reach out to that we could help. So one great way to do that is at these webinars to connect with everybody who's here. Remember that everybody who's here shares your interest in whatever this topic is in the speakers. So please do share your LinkedIn URLs with each other. I'll share mine when I get a moment here, and I encourage you to all connect with me. I would love that. All right, moving on to this really fun part of today's webinar. We as in Vaughn, we are giving away 50 copies of Mark's book, The Science of Scaling. So attendees here today can request a copy by using the QR code on this slide. Please take a minute, get to that form where you can fill out a form with all of your shipping information, and we will send you this book. I've read this book. It is fascinating. It is very helpful. It is very interesting. Not only are you going to enjoy the read of this book, but Mark is donating all of the proceeds to one of his favorite organizations, McLean Hospital, and Mark will have a few minutes at the end of the webinar to talk about that. But he'll talk more about that. He'll talk just briefly more about the book, but I do encourage you to request your complimentary copy through this form. It will be sent to you by Vaughn, and partway through the webinar, I'll also share a link so you can see how to do that. All right, we are getting closer to the start of our fireside chat, but next I do just want to tell you a little bit about Vaughn. Vaughn is the go-to-market brain, and during today's fireside chat, you're going to hear us reference to this concept of a go-to-market brain a few different times. And this is the idea that revenue teams need more than just connecting tools together with MCPs and skill files. Revenue teams need an actual intelligence layer that understands your business and how it works. And that is what Vaughn is. So speaking of Vaughn, Today's webinar is brought to you by Vaughn, and this will not be a product pitch webinar, but I do want you to know how you can learn more about Vaughn, and that is by visiting the Vaughn website at vaughnlabs.ai. Okay, with that now, I'd love to welcome our speakers to join me on the stage. So Sahil and Mark, please hit that button and join me out here. Mark was the founding CRO at HubSpot, where he scaled revenue from zero to IPO. He's also a senior lecturer at Harvard Business School and the co-founder of Stage 2 Capital. He also is the author of that book that I shared with you, The Science of Scaling, and I believe one or two other books as well. And Mark is one of the most informed voices on the history and the future of revenue. He's been making some bold predictions about where we're heading in the AI era, and I'm very excited for you all to hear his point of view. So welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate that introduction. We just jumped in here. You can hear me okay?
Yep, you sound great. Yep.
Great.
We had a little bit of technical issues, audience, so that's why you'll see Mark on the phone here. But we figured it out last minute, so really glad that you're here.
Yeah, we got on.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're also going to hear from Sahil Aggarwal. He's the CEO and co-founder of Vaughn. Before Vaughn, Sahil and his co-founder built a company called Rattle, which many of you here may be familiar with. And Sahil pivoted the company to build Vaughn, and that's what we call the go-to-market brain. He has spent the last 5 years deep in conversations with revenue leaders and RevOps leaders about what's broken and what needs to change. And I always find his perspective very valuable, very interesting. I love working with Sahil, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy his perspective as well. So welcome, Sahil.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Mark, Sahil, thank you for being here today. I've been talking for quite a while here now, so I'm going to just take one step back and hand it over to you, Sahil, because when you and I were talking yesterday, you had a question that you wanted to discuss with Mark before we jump in with my questions. So let me hand that to you.
Yeah, I wanted a first shot, Mark, at asking you this question. I ask this to every CRO that I meet right now, and you have not only been a CRO of a public company, but you are also a very thoughtful and methodical CRO. So I'll set the stage. A couple of months ago, we did a study on how much time do sellers spend on average on external meetings per day. And
right.
So customer facing time spent by sellers. And
yeah, that's the money. That's the money shot right now.
Yeah, that's the money shot. And we knew that they don't spend a lot of time on customer facing meetings, but the statistic was 30% time on selling, 70% on admin. What we found was that on average across 1,200 sellers, when we looked at their actual calendars and call conversations, they spend 1.2 hours on average per day on external meetings, which is less than 20%.
That's crazy. How big was the data set?
1,200 sellers across 50 different companies, the smallest being 15 sellers, the largest being 300 sellers.
Yeah, you got to write that up. That's sick.
Yeah.
So let's unpack it. Go ahead. Your questions. I know where you're going, but go ahead and frame it. Yeah.
So my question is that there were 30 companies in that list, but I'm sure that all the people who are listening to this, I can almost guarantee nobody's average is more than 2 hours a day. And so the question is that the same companies have an open role as well, has multiple open roles for AEs. Is if your AEs are not spending more than 1 hour a day or 1.2 hours a day on external meetings, then how do you have open roles for more sellers?
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. All right, so let's frame it, because since we talked last about this, I think 6 weeks ago out in SF, it's actually moved quite a bit. It's crazy how fast things are moving in terms of our understanding or where we have conviction on the best practice. So let's just zoom out and frame Sahil's question for a second. And I might frame this one in effectively measuring the ROI for our go-to-market AI investments. Okay, so at the board level, that's a big question. This is a big question across everything. We're investing in AI, in finance and R&D and HR. Are we seeing the value? And I like to think a lot about the go-to-market one. And so I think the go-to-market one's probably the easiest relative to say engineering. because there's always been massive debates around how you measure the productivity of engineers. With sales, it's a lot easier. I mean, we can frame it as productivity per rep. We can frame it as the percentage of reps that are hitting quota. We can do both. And I would say like one of those is probably the logical like outcome metric by which we like measure it. I think you got to probably have an LTV, customer health score in there too. But like those metrics are obvious. If we focus on like PPR for a moment, productivity per rep, one extraction back to that is a first principles formula that isn't as well known in the ecosystem, but is important to frame right now, which is the revenue velocity formula. Okay, so the revenue velocity formula is the number of opportunities that are active. Let's look at this on a per rep basis. Okay, so the number of opportunities that are actively being worked by a rep times the close rate times the ACV divided by the sales cycle. Okay, so that now we start thinking about these four variables. And so just kind of use an example. Let's say a rep is working 20 opportunities and they have a close rate of 20%. So they'll close 4 of those into customers. The average sale is $200,000. So those 4 customers generate $800,000, and the average sales cycle is 2 quarters. So you divide that 800,000 into 400,000. So that rep is producing 400,000 a quarter, right? So now the question is like, oh well, using AI, which of those numbers is easiest to move? And ACV is not a good one to mess with. Because ACV is like that. That's just like, I don't think AI in most cases is. I mean, I guess in some cases it's like it's doubling your ACV. Like I don't know. It's just like that's not an efficiency thing. That's just a product offering thing. And if you double your ACV with not changing anything else, you might move into a different market accidentally, right? So like ACV, that's its own beast. Then that leaves number of opportunities, close rate, and sales cycle. The interesting thing around close rate and sales cycle, I would argue that those are more difficult to move right now because they're dependent on buyer behavior, right? Like we might like totally accelerate using AI how fast we get to a meeting. We might be able to process that meeting using AI faster, get all the follow-ups, get the sales room situated, get the demo wireframes situated. And we can be like, okay, cool, we're done. Let's do the demo now. And the buyer's like, we're not ready. Like I got to organize my committee. Like I got to get, so the buyers have less incentive to accelerate their buying processes with AI. It's happening, but they have less incentive to. And so that's the tricky thing about the close rate and the sales cycle is they're dependent on the buyers. The number of activities, the number of opportunities that a rep works simultaneously, that's completely in the control of the seller, which is cool. And so if we like, you're gonna invest in AI that move all of them: close rate, decreased sales cycle, number of opportunities. But right now, I think the one that's easiest to double is the number of opportunities, which is what you're getting at. So if we focus there, the best way to measure that is circles right back to Sahil's question, which is selling time. Like historically, the best people who selling time in terms of like in a given week, what percent of the time is a rep with a prospect or customer? Best in class has been 30%. Your study shows it's less than 20, which is crazy. And today that can get to 60 or 70% with AI. And so that's the opportunity, to your point, is like, I need to see more board meetings where we're measuring selling time. So we can talk about how to do that. I'd love to hear about your methodology there. And we need to just like list out all the AI enabled go-to-market use cases that we think can double selling time and just attack it like product managers and get there. Because it's like same rep, same territory, same products, same battle cards, same pricing. And all you do is go from 20% selling time to 60%. That is going to be wonders for your productivity. Okay, so did I even answer your question? Like, I think that hopefully that framed it. And then what did you say at the end, Sahil? Because you were like, okay, we did this study. And like, I guess you were like, why hire more AEs when you're doing this? Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. Like, I mean, I guess here's this is another thing that I've been thinking about, and I'd love to get your feedback on it is, okay, we can reflect on this for a moment, and we had a plan to go from, like, let's say we have 20 reps on the team now, and we're planning to hire 5 more in the next quarter. And I think your question is, why would you do that when your 20 reps are only FaceTime at 1.5 hours a day? Why wouldn't you just go to use tech to get to 3 hours a day? I think that's a very fair point.
Yeah.
But I mean, we don't know how long it's going to take to achieve that. And so what I'm encouraging people to do is almost set up a test team to enable that. So you can continue to go down the known scale mode, which is we're going to add the 5 reps every quarter, and we're going to deal with the fact that we know that they're only doing 1.2 hours a day, but we know that it works, it's profitable, the go-to-market is good. So we're going to keep doing that, but we're going to take 2 or 3 salespeople and put them in a totally different floor, totally different environment, and see if we can get them from 1.2 hours of selling time a day to 4.
Yeah.
And once we achieve that, we will roll it out across the team. And that way, like, we don't know if it takes a week, great. If it takes 6 months, then at least we didn't waste our growth projections with our legacy mindset. I don't know, like, so I threw a lot on you, Sahil. Like, I guess my follow-up questions to you is, like, 1, do you want to push back on that just to debate it? And then 2, like, I want to hear about your methodology on measuring selling time. Dude, who's asking who questions here?
I love this, man. I'm just gonna sit back and let you guys go. This is great.
I'll tell you what. I absolutely agree with number of ops being active can be widely moved with AI. That's where we'll see the 5x productivity gain that we have all been promised with AI. And you know what? So it's not a pushback.
And by the way, Sahil, for now, like, I think in 2027, we could be talking about doubling, tripling close rates. But for now, that's what I see as the lowest hanging fruit. Just to, like, go. Okay, keep going.
Yeah. But you know what? Just piggybacking off of your point, which is that will also improve your overall win rate, because your best people, it's not like you will magically generate 3x more pipeline, right? Like, that pipeline will have to come from someone else who was supposed to be on the team. But your best reps already close 40 to 60% higher win rate than your worst reps.
Yes. So I think that's a fantastic point. And I've been getting this counter argument or counterpoint quite a bit. And I'm internalizing it, because while I'm trying to, like, really hone people on selling time and number of opportunities because it's lowest hanging fruit, you're absolutely right. Attribution and everything, marketing, sales, like, sales tech is always extraordinarily difficult. You're going to see improvements on close rates and selling time as well. So let's just get there and measure all of them. And, we don't probably have to, like, care too much about, like, okay, we just enabled automatic deal rooms, like, and that's working. And we saw, like, an improvement in selling time by 30% and an improvement in close rates by 20%. Which one do we, like, attribute it to? Like, who cares? Who cares? It doesn't matter,
Yeah. No, I think the primary thing is still that from a first principles thinking, your top sellers close at a much better win rate than everyone else. And I think that is what you want to be focused on, which is, like, give your best sellers more pipeline and give them more room to close. And you were asking about our methodology. What we have been thinking of, Mark, is that, again, from a first principles perspective, this 1 million a year quota, the average that hasn't moved over the last 20, 25 years, I think that is flawed in this AI age.
Sure.
Because if you do the same backward math of, okay, if I want to win 1 million a year, I need to win 250K a quarter. For me to win 250K a quarter, I need to have a pipe of 1 million. At 50K ACV for 1 million pipe, that is 20 deals. And so you will just give a seller 20 deals, hoping that math will math out, and you will get to 250K a quarter. And 20 deals at a mid-market ACV of 50K, that translates to 1.2 hours a day.
Exactly.
So, I think
I mean, like, that's, like, this, it's a tough thing. Like, setting quotas and understanding the PPR potential, it's always been very, very difficult. because we do, to your point, we always gravitate to like what the industry expectations are, and yet it shouldn't be rooted there. Like it's more defined on like the supply and demand curve of your offering and like how effective you are internally. Like it has, like, I mean, if you just look at like the early days of Google, you know, like their productivity per rep was probably $10 million a year when they, in 2003, when they were just first coming out. And that's not unlike what happened in the first 2 years of OpenAI after the, you know, the November 22 release. I mean, their productivity per rep was probably over 10 million a year. And like, that just, all that means is you have just ridiculous product market fit and pull in the market. And you're still seeing that from like Cursor and Lovable and some of these companies that just have ridiculous pull still. Claude right now. You know what I mean? Like those reps are averaging 10 million a year. And like at some point, the growth aspirations start to exceed the pull. And that's when you have to like start to like look for like you're starting to see, like, as another example, the first year of hiring sales reps at Google in like 2003 or whatever, they replicated their engineering hiring model. So at the time, they only hired engineers out of like Ivy League schools. So like, we'll just do that in sales. Let's just hire Ivy League sellers. And there's never been a study that shows that Ivy League sellers outperform other sellers, right? So they were just defying, but that just was their culture. And it worked because they had so much product market fit. And eventually their growth aspirations outlived like their product market fit. And they had to actually go find experienced salespeople. Largely, they went to like media sales, translated very well, and they started to crush it. And you saw the same thing at OpenAI, where, you know, when I talked to Elisa, who was running sales at the time, I forget what her hiring model was. She was like really focused on like PLG Stripe sellers. And then when James Diet took over the team, or a lot of the team, he switched to management consulting experience, like people from McKinsey and BCG. Which again, that doesn't correlate with like, and now they hired Denise out of Salesforce, and they're bringing in very traditional sellers to try to crack the enterprise, right? So like this thing of like, what is the optimal quota is very difficult and contextual to the business. But to your point, the average in enterprise has been 1 million, and you're absolutely right. The average should be 2 million in Q1 for the people that are on the cutting edge of adopting go-to-market AI. They will start averaging 2x PPRs in Q1 of next year.
And Mark, if let's say if you were the CRO of a SaaS company, you don't get a blank slate. You have been the CRO at this company for 4 years, and the quota has always been 1 million. How do you manage this transition? Because all the people who are listening here, I would say 90% are in SaaS companies, 10% are in the Lovables and the Cursors of the world.
So yeah, I would replicate what I talked about earlier if I was at a legacy SaaS business, is I would continue with scaling in the way that we've known for 10 years, as long as that's like working. And I would aggressively invest in a test team to figure out the new. And as I get comfortable with that process, hopefully I can do it in a week, but it might take 6 months. As I get comfortable with that process, I kind of like cannibalize my go-to-market system as fast as possible. That's what I would do. And I mean, talk to me about like the follow-up questions on that, Sahil, or the realities of whether that's possible or whatever.
And who would you put on this test team? Would you put your best sellers? Would you put your, like, would you pick sellers who are most open to AI?
No, it's not. It's probably, you know, it's almost like more like a first seller mentality, right? Like we've often talked that like the top salesperson at Workday would be the terrible first hire for your business at the product market fit phase, because it's a totally different skill set. Like the number one reps at an existing team, they're great process followers. Like here's your territory, here's the playbook, here's the battle cards, here's your comp plan, and there's like great, they're animals and they go at it and make a ton of money. Terrible first hire on that team, because it's all about learning and experimentation and pace of change and like methodology development. So there's a whole different skill set. I would say process development would be a big deal, and change management would be a big deal.
And would you give them a quota?
Probably not. Yeah, like I would. I don't like quotas on the first hire. I
Mm.
like. I just think like we're trying to learn and figure something out. So I don't like it then. I don't like it then.
Mm.
Yeah.
So Sahil and Mark, I'd like to move us to a related question.
Yeah, sure.
We could stay on this one for a very long time, but I would like to move us over. But before we do, Sahil, I want to also ask you, because I know you have been talking to thousands of RevOps leaders, hundreds of CROs over the last couple of years. And I wonder what you're seeing in the market today of what people are doing to experiment, what you're seeing and how they are successfully using a RevOps or revenue brain or something else, and where you're seeing the experimentation happen. And then I'll move us on to a related question.
I think a broad-based point that I will make is right now every company thinks they are innovating, but they are not. True innovation always comes from someone who is thinking about the problem 24/7 and is at the frontier, and that is usually a vendor. So I would never build a cursor or Claude code in-house. I would never do that because then my business will be at a disadvantage. So what am I seeing from talking to all these people? And Mark, I would love to hear your thoughts as well. And we were talking
Hmm.
about this a bit backstage a few minutes before we started this.
Yeah.
Is a lot of people are right now in the agentic era still, which is let's build agents. Like let's build an agent that will draft my follow-up. Let's build an agent that will automatically surface deals that are at risk. Let's build an agent that will do forecasting. And I think that's a stepping stone to where we eventually want to be because we so far for the last 20 years, we have been in an automation world. Like Workato and iPaaS is all that we have known for on the automation front.
Yeah.
And agents are just an incremental update to an automation, a node with an AI if else condition on it. Where I think true productivity lies is in the intelligence layer that is over the agentic layer. This intelligence layer, I sometimes call it super agent, is you don't need to build underlying agents. You just give it a task and it knows everything about your business and it does the work for you. So what I am seeing is in mid-market companies, companies are obsessed with building agents and not the super agent because building the super agent is hard. In public companies, they have realized this because they have been building agents for 2 years and it hasn't worked. The PPR has not moved. Like no CRO can go to the board and say like I have increased my productivity by X% because we built these agents. So they are starting to now build this super agent or go-to-market brain internally. And what public companies are realizing is that it's freaking hard to build.
Yeah.
Uh,
Totally. Yeah.
So I think that's what I'm seeing is like mid-market companies are building agents. Public companies have realized that, or larger companies have realized that they are now building this go-to-market brain. And building this go-to-market brain is hard.
Yeah.
Mark,
Yeah.
what do you think about this
Yeah. I
this whole
want to jam
evolution?
on this with you. I want to jam on this with you because there's two things I want to dig into. One is what are the contexts in which you would do a build versus a buy and what triggers the
Yeah.
buy? I've been thinking a lot about that. I was obviously on the investment side. And then the other context is like, what do you think is the end state architecturally? Like, is there a
Mhm.
brain for each function as we know it today? Or I kind of feel like it should go completely cross-functional. And what does that look like?
Mm.
Which is challenging, right? So let's tackle the first one. Yeah, I mean, if someone's trying to make the build argument, and then we'll stay in the go-to-market stack for a sec, then it's like, okay, you're gonna like you're using some tool to capture the frontline conversation on Zoom, whether it's Gong or whatever, and that's sucking the unstructured data of all your conversations into the brain. And
Mhm.
then you could potentially suck the emails in as well. So you have that context, and then suck the Slacks
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
And then you're just going to build a bunch of agents on that to do everything from what should I work on today? What's the next step with this account? What's the forecast on this account? All this
Yeah.
stuff. Like you just like basically you can eliminate the entire tech stack potentially, just
Yeah.
conceptually. So like, why wouldn't you do that? and then I will frame it as like, having looked at that in a lot of different contexts, I'm starting to see the following reasons and why people don't build it. The first one is regulatory risk. We've seen this a lot in healthcare, and I don't know if we'll see it in the go-to-market side. Where just like, I mean, a CTO can like, yeah, I could build that, but like, why would I take on that risk in my job?
Yeah.
I'd rather just like buy this company and sue the crap out of them if there's like a major policy issue. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's just,
Yeah.
there's that reality, which is also similar to like customer like privacy constraints. I think in our world on the go-to-market side, God forbid, like someone discloses like an insider trading information on a GOM recording, and then that leaks into the brain and someone finds out about that. Like, if you built it yourself, you're friggin' liable and getting sued for that. You know, like, so there's like that whole piece. And then I also think there's like, I guess you'd call it an economies of scale reason. So like, let's say that you guys built like Medic into your methodology, right? And you train the Medic agent. Like, Medic implementation from company to company, and for folks listening, that's like a very popular sales methodology. 80% of it's the same. The final 20% is different, right? In terms of like your particular product, your particular objections, your particular buyer. But 80% is the same. Now, if you build it internally and you train your Medic agent on the 1,000 calls that you do every quarter, your customer buys a vendor, and that vendor is trained on 100,000 calls a quarter.
Yeah.
Like, you're putting yourself at a massive disadvantage by not taking advantage of the centralized, if it's done well, right? So I think that's a big one. And then the final one that's cropped up quite a bit, and I'd be very curious because like you're much deeper on the technical architecture side here, is just token efficiency and compute efficiency. Like, a lot of people talk about like when you build it internally, there's just a lot of sophistication to know which foundational model to use, balancing the cost and timeliness and the quality, like balancing those things. There's a lot of opportunity for open source utilization, and there's also, like, I don't know what you'd call this, but like the example that people give me is you've enabled all your people to do stuff, and like every single SDR has built a different agent that like automates the population of the CRM with like the Google search, whatever, the website. They all built that separate agent, and that's not even friggin' AI, it's code. And yet every time they run it, it's friggin' burning compute and tokens, totally unnecessary. So I think we're starting a massive rise in leniency toward a buy because of compute efficiency. But I don't know. I said a lot, Sahil. What do you think? Like, push back on me on like some of those things.
I think on the regulatory risk, if your CTO is building internal tooling for go-to-market team, then you should probably leave that company. There is so much for the CTO to build for your customers. Let's say you're an HR platform and your CTO says that, hey, I'm going to build go-to-market tooling. Dude, this AI wave just hit. There is Opus 4.8, Fable 5 is coming out. You can do so much for your HR customers. You will spend even a few weeks on building something that is core to the go-to-market organization, and then you will maintain it.
Yeah.
Because things will break, new models will come out, your token efficiency.
The total cost of ownership of the maintenance. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, like
there is, I don't know if I should say it. Is it public? But like there is a public company that we all know that got rid of their CRM in February and built it. And it's going fine. They have 3,000 reps, but it's a very product-driven company. They're probably, I don't know, their revenue is probably about 20 billion. I don't know. Like, I got to look at it, but like, so it's doable. But like, I just think it's a very unique breed where they're founder-led still, and they have that capability. And like, is that really the best business decision? To have wasted so much engineering team on that? I don't know.
Yeah. And I think building, at least what we have seen, Mark, is building the go-to-market brain. Like for us, it took us 10 engineers and 12 months and 3.5 million in R&D spend. And this last year, so that was 3.5 million. This year, our R&D spend will be 8 million on
Right.
building this go-to-market brain.
Right.
We are going to post this on LinkedIn tomorrow morning. We crossed 500 billion tokens in the first 5 months, in the last 5 months.
Right. Crazy.
So that's a very different scale, and I think we'll cross the next 500 billion, or we'll cross the trillion mark in tokens in the next 2 months. Like that's
Yeah.
that's the pace in which things are moving. I think that's the piece that I think where whenever I have a conversation with anyone, I just tell them that yes, there is token efficiency, yes, there is economies of scale, yes, there is regulatory risk. But for me, it comes down to your best people. Your best people are the AI engineers right now who are very much in demand. They will have to build this. And can you afford them on an internal project versus building something for your customers?
And will they even join your company, honestly? Like if you're
Yeah,
the best AI engineer out there, are you going to a legacy SaaS business to work on an
yeah,
internal project?
yeah,
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
it's tough.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I
yeah,
guess the
so I think,
counter argument to that is, and like I'd love your because I agree with you, CEO, but I just want to know how to debate it. So the
yeah.
counter argument would be like, oh yeah, but like there's no such thing as an awesome AI engineer anymore because the tools are so good. It's just like all you have to do is know more of the process that you want, and the tools are getting better every quarter. So I can just
Yeah.
like build this with like a standard RevOps person.
I would say the floor has moved up, but the ceiling has also moved dramatically up.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at how complicated of a product Cursor is or Cloud Code is, it's a very complex product. If you think even a normal engineer can build that product, and when I say you, I mean anyone who has that doubt,
Mm-hmm.
it's not easy to build. If you think building Granola is easy or 11 Labs is easy or Sierra, building these agentic systems is very freaking hard because
Yeah.
it's not the deterministic nature anymore. Like that is what I've realized is when you have your, let's say, imagine this is the code, when you have agents on the outside, that is easy. That is what everyone is doing is they take a go-to-market brain and build agents around it. But when you have the agent at the center of it all, it is very freaking hard. And I think anyone who is in a AI company will say that will know that it is very hard.
Yeah.
So I think I get the argument that building has become easy, but so has the bar for what is a good software in the AI era.
Yep. Totally.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to move us on to a related section now, and I want to combine a conversation between you two around role specialization and how management layers are likely to go deeper now. So
Yeah.
the related to the selling time, right? We just talked about, well, we talked about a lot, but one of the where we started was the sellers are less than 20% selling time now. Let's work to get them north of that, maybe even up to 60, 75% of selling time. But
Mm-hmm.
Mark, you also, I've seen and heard you talk about a prediction that you have where the revenue org has historically been sliced into SDRs and AEs and AMs and CSMs. And you've made the argument that you think the future could be collapsing back into more full cycle go-to-market roles. So I think
Yeah.
this is an interesting thing to talk about of, does that happen? How, and for the audience here today, I'd also like to let's talk about it theoretically, but also specifically, if somebody wanted to try it, how would
Yeah.
somebody take this away and do something? And then what does that do to management layers as well, right? We're seeing just a
Sure.
huge shift in everything. So
Mm-hmm.
let's go over there now. Mark, I kind of just dumped this on you by saying,
No,
I've
it's
heard you
perfect.
have this prediction. Do you still have this prediction? This
I
was a month
do.
ago.
I
Okay.
do. More
I'd
and more
love to hear your
conviction around
response.
it. Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Actually,
So,
before you answer,
yeah.
Mark, Sarah, would you mind sharing the screen of Mark's prediction so everyone knows? So I love this slide, by the way,
Yeah.
Mark. Like, I've
Yeah.
seen.
Yeah. Yeah. Because some of those that from the screen from a month ago, I think, yeah, they're all
But
still, I have a lot of conviction on all of them. We've talked
these are the
about
ones that I pulled out. Yeah.
yeah. We talked about the first one quite a bit. And I think
Yep.
the narrative around that has exceeded quite a bit. I think, in framing in the revenue velocity formula, et cetera. But like, yeah, to the point on like the second and third, and that leads to the fourth. So first off, let's just like make sure that we think about role specialization in a first principles manner, because it had a very wonderful 2 decades, probably largely driven by the Predictable Revenue book by Aaron Ross, and he was one of the first SDRs at Salesforce. Because in 1980s, 90s, like there was one role, sales. It's like, here's a telephone book, here's a territory, here's a quota. You booked your meetings, you sold your customers, and you managed your book. Like that was just, you were full cycle. And in the last 20 years, we've gone to SDR plus AE plus AM plus CSM, right? And I had historically had to like, everyone gravitated to that, and it wasn't always correct. And I think it's gonna be a lot less correct because there's pros and cons. The pros to specialization is you can deploy a human skill set to the role. So if you're really great at tech and relationships, you're probably more of a CSM, AM. If you're starting out, you're probably going to go SDR. If you're really good at closing and discovery and political management, you're probably going to go AE. And in fact, the other reason is it's very hard to find great AEs. I don't want to waste their time on booking meetings. I don't want to waste their time on setting up the product, right? So those are the advantages. The disadvantages are it's a terrible experience to the buyer because they have to deal with this like really inexperienced 22-year-old initially who doesn't really know anything. Then they get handed off to this AE that they like. And then once they buy, they don't talk to the AE anymore. And they have to meet this new person. And there's like information lost along the way. So that's like a huge disadvantage. And the other disadvantage is it creates massive risk internally for local maximization. So what that means is SDRs just book meetings and you run the risk of a lot of bad meetings. AEs just sell customers and you run the risk of a lot of bad customers. When you have one person that books the meeting, no one's going to set a bad meeting for themselves, and no one's going to sign up a really terrible customer if they have to manage them. So like we had all this like massive sales and marketing alignment and CS alignment over the years because of this. And so I just believe that a sales-enabled, an AI-enabled seller, once you have that, it mitigates all the advantages of specialization, and it shifts you dramatically toward a full-cycle individual. And you're already seeing a totally different narrative that supports it. Is you're already seeing some of that in R&D, where I think R&D is a year or two ahead of being AI-enabled. Like we had the same trend happen. Like 1995, there was one role, engineer. And now it's PM, AE, PM, front-end engineer, back-end engineer, data analyst, data scientist, designer. Like it's a lot. And you're starting to see PMs being asked to do PRs. You know what I mean? Like, so like you're starting to already see it there to support it. And like, that would be the argument on that. So I don't know, Sahil, like if you have like other alternative views or what do you think?
I think it's hard for me to imagine that will happen, that AEs, CSMs, and SDRs all will collapse into this one specialized, into this one generic role. And that's my mental blockade is only because if the selling time goes from 20% or 18% to 75%, then how would they even have the time to go do that? But at the same time, I hear the argument because R&D is 2 years ahead of go-to-market. And that is exactly what we are seeing. My PMs are, if my PMs can't fix a small bug themselves, then they are not good PMs. My front-end engineer is now writing back-end code, and there is no front-end engineer anymore. So I see that analogy, and that actually connects a lot with me, which is maybe you're right. Maybe they are not 100% CSM, but they can do the 60% or 70% job of a CSM, and that is enough for this general new AE role where 75% time is selling, and the rest 25% they can do the job of a decent SDR, decent CSM. I get that. One thing that I also see is that, again, this is coming back to Vaughn, because that's my experience over the last year and a half, is every single customer who uses this Vaughn go-to-market brain, they stop using the word silos anymore. because there is no
I
silo.
know.
Like
I know.
every piece of information goes into this brain. So previously, a CSM who didn't know what an AE sold is able to go in and say like, "Hey, what did the AE sell?" And can you look at the product documentation and tell me like, do we even support that? And what are some of the common pitfalls that I have to avoid in the next coming months? And just like that, you get an answer. Marketing is able to do attribution all across the funnel, all the way from lead source to which lead source creates how much revenue multiple times a day,
Totally.
not once a month. So that also makes me think that if silos are going away, then maybe that is how they will show up. So you have got me thinking in the last few minutes that maybe my understanding is slightly behind on this topic.
Well, I mean, we're talking about like way in the future, and like you see inklings of this, and I think it's an important discussion because there will be people that embrace the new model faster and they'll give them a massive edge. And so it's
Yeah.
pontificate about these organizational designs. Because like you're bringing up like these functional silos. Like that's a very Star Trek-y view that I think is years and years away on broader functions. Like if you just think about an org design today, you have finance, HR, engineering, product engineering, sales, marketing, customer success, whatever.
Yeah.
Which is like, I think the reason why is that? Why do we have that? I think we have that because of human limitation. Like you don't go and get like a master's in finance and then write code, and you don't go and get a master's in CS and then go be CFO. Like we have limitations as humans, so we've built these massive departmental silos based on these limitations. And I think like this I think that comes with a cost. Like finance always wants to be closer to the revenue team, and product always wants to be closer to the CS team. And so you could start to imagine these same efficiency arguments that we're seeing in R&D. We can almost see in GTM. We see it across the entire go-to-market org. Like, could we get to a point where a single GM builds the product and distributes the product and counts the finances? You know what I mean? Like, that's the same argument, right? Like, and because it gets rid of these functional silos. Now that becomes very Star Trek-y. But like essentially what the organization becomes is a bunch of GMs that run customer segments. Like Sahil, you're the GM for the mid-market healthcare in the US, and you have the autonomy to adapt their product for them and adapt your distribution strategy to them, and your whole thing is just to generate a great P&L.
Yeah.
But anyway, we got to come back to 2026.
No, but you know what? In that world, and maybe this comes back to one of the initial points that you brought up. In that world, what will happen or what would or could happen is you have these functional tools. So one specific tool for each function that I as a GM am managing. Maybe I'm managing Vaughn for go-to-market. I'm managing some other AI system for finance. I'm managing some other HR system for something else, which is like these.
Yes.
Right? Like the analogy that I think of is Excel. Like we had 1990s, we had Excel and everyone was using it. But then Salesforce is essentially like built on top of Excel, right? Like
totally.
And then you have Workday for HR, and then you have ServiceNow for IT.
Right.
And these are all built on Excel. I think the difference this time is that the previous system of record layer told you what to work on, right? Like I can go into Salesforce, and if I spend enough time, I will know what to work on. But this layer actually does the work.
Yes. I mean, that's a really good analogy to get you thinking of like why, because like you go from on-prem to cloud. You could have the same argument. Like, why didn't we run everything? Why did we run our R&D team on GitHub? Why did we run our finance team on NetSuite? Why do we run our people team on Workday? And why do we run our go-to-market team on Salesforce or HubSpot? Why didn't we run everything on NetSuite?
Yeah.
Or everything on Salesforce or HubSpot?
Yeah.
And that's like the answer to that might be like help us answer what will happen in this, like what it's going to look like in 10 years in the cloud, in the AI architecture. I mean, probably the answer for that is like you had these functional leaders, the CFO, the CRO, the CMO, the CPO, that had budgets and power and requirements, and no one could be good to everyone. And is that going to be the case in the future? Yes, if that sustains, and no, if we move to this GM of customer segment model.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But
the
that's
thing,
way in the future. Yeah.
I'm going to
that's-
bring us back a little bit to
Yeah,
2026
exactly.
here.
Yeah.
Man, I wish we had 2 or 3 hours for this. This would be fun. Okay, I would like both of you to comment and talk about the shift to management layers being able to handle much larger teams. Let's pull that back because that's a reality likely today or in the next couple of years. So let's talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's Sarah, there's 2 triggers to it. One is what we already talked about at length, is like, do we go to a consolidated an AI-enabled AE that manages the entire process, which would change the management CRO. Because a big job of the CRO today is aligning those local maximums, cost SDRs and AEs, and that could go away. And then the other part is the importance of the tech stack relative to the human scalability. So if you told me, Mark, it's 2015, and obviously you want an A+ in both, but if you had to compromise, would you rather have an A+ team of human AEs with a C+ tech architecture and like RevOps function?
Yep.
Or would you have an A+ tech stack and RevOps function and a C+ set of humans in the sales team? I would have done in 2015 the former. Like if I had A-player human sellers and like a mediocre tech stack, I'm gonna crush.
Yeah.
Does that shift in 2030? I think so.
Yeah.
I think because like how powerful the AI will be, of course I want an A+ on both.
Yeah.
But if I think I'd rather have an A+ AI-enabled like tech team process, etc., and I'm fine with C+ humans relative to A+ humans, but a mediocre legacy tech stack. I think the opposite wins.
Interesting. Yeah. Sahil, what's your perspective?
I think this is what Frank Slootman said in a different way in his book a few years ago, which is, would you rather have a great product and a mediocre sales team, or would you have a great sales team and a mediocre product? I think we are talking about some version of that in the go-to-market era, which is like, would you rather have a great RevOps team, which is tech-enabled, with a mediocre sales team? Because you can scale the RevOps team, but finding great sellers is very hard.
Yeah.
You can cultivate those great sellers. So I 100% agree. Mark, you said something a few months ago when we met, which was AI can do the job better than better than most sales managers today.
Yeah.
Like AI,
That's the other piece to this. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I have been saying the same thing for many months now, which is like, if you use true AI, you will see that AI can go through your book of business or your entire team's book of business and highlight every single risk and gap and what you need to do and help you do it. Much better, much faster, much cheaper than an actual sales manager. So the question is that if you are a sales manager and you are not making the shift to this 2026 world, which is this is already possible, then do you feel behind?
Definitely. And like, that's the other wrinkle to this whole argument around the future of the CRO and the rep to manager ratio and stuff is, one view on the sales management role is, when set up well, they're responsible for hiring. They have to pick their team and assess their team and hire their reps. They're responsible for coaching, which very few get to. That's the number where like the managers spend the least amount on coaching, and that's the one that drives the productivity the best. And so coaching is largely like listening to perhaps gone recordings, evaluating data, doing pipeline reviews that have a coaching element to it. And then the third part is holding the rep accountable to process the sales methodology and forecasting and being able to generate a forecast. And so like the coaching part is just such upside. And if you're not AI enabled, you're going to be way behind, because even a good coach in a pre-AI era would probably do like 2 pipeline reviews a week with each rep, which has some forecast, hygiene, and also some coaching when you ask about decision makers and the questions that were asked, et cetera. And then they might like listen to a call recording once a week with a rep, or like run some statistical analyses to dive into a particular skill set. Like that is like, you're seeing such a small slice of a rep's performance and making these massive like skill diagnoses and skill coaching of investments based on a small slice of data that now the AI can so much better summarize how a rep is performing against the skill scorecard and so much better deliver the training to the rep around that deficiency and how that rep likes to learn. And it's only going to get better with time.
Yeah.
So, that changes how we think about management and the CRO role.
Yeah.
And who do you think brings about that change? Is this because sales manager won't say like, give me twice as many reps. Is it the CRO? Is it the CEO? Is it the board?
Yeah, both. Yeah, mostly the CRO in this case. They got to be on board to like change the team. And again, this is all everything we've talked about, from like the collapsing of the reps into a single role, AI enabled, getting selling time up to like 70%, and having this rep to manager ratio and being AI coach. That all happens in that test team.
Yeah.
Keep running your legacy model, keep hitting your scale metrics, but run this test team aggressively, and hopefully you can crack the nut quick and cannibalize your team and get there first.
Yeah.
And the CRO needs to lead that. Yeah.
All right, I need to wrap us up here. We are done. This has been wonderful. Thank you for joining us, everybody. Mark, I want to hand it to you for just a minute to talk about your McLean Hospital.
Yeah, I think you might have mentioned this in the beginning, but I wrote this more recent book, Science of Scaling, that we've talked a lot about here. It's a moment where we need to understand the first principles of go-to-market and scale, and that's why I put this book out. It's 10 years in the making, and even more important, the AI era. 100% of the proceeds are donated to mental health, specifically McLean Hospital, which many mental health professionals will say is the best in the world in leading edge research. It's for two reasons. One, it's been a big deal in my life, mental health. There's still a stigma. We've come a long way, but we still have work to do. I've been a direct caretaker, and I've also been a patient. And I can say that bravely, publicly, that a lot of people can't have to suffer in silence because there is still a stigma. When we interview someone that survived cancer 10 years, we probably elevate our perception of them. When we find out they struggle with mental health seriously, we might have concerns. And they're both often genetic and disease and can be treated. So that's part of the reason. The other part is my students point out to me how offset, like the imbalance, the amount of talent and skill and money that's going into building AI and not in helping society adapt to it. And with every tech revolution, there's evolvement of humans, and then there's also pain.
Yeah.
And we just have to be way more proactive around bringing society along with us by all doing our own little thing. And this is my little thing for now, and I'll do more later. But I hope that people who are directly profiting from AI can really reflect on how you can do more for society as we adapt into this new era.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Sahil. I appreciate you both being here today. This was a lot of fun. Martina, thank you. You're backstage here, but thank you for allowing us to do this on your platform today. Audience, you'll hear from me. You'll receive some of our reports. You'll receive, again, a link to get your complimentary copy of this book. Follow Vaughn. We've got some interesting research coming along. Thank you for being here today, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, Mark.